Alrighty, I think we are going to go ahead and get started for real this time. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, and welcome to the Landscape Ecology and NEPA Planning training. This is not a conference, it is a training or a meeting. It's important to say that out loud. Meeting management stuff. We are going to be spending the day today thinking about building a credible, science-based rationale for why here, why now. My name is Cheryl Fries, and I'm a science liaison with the Forest Service, so it's my job to get practitioners to mingle with scientists and share ideas, and I think you'll have a great opportunity to do that today. This event's been sponsored by the Regional 6 Ecology Program, the Region 6 Planning and Natural Resources Shops, Pacific Northwest Research Station, and most of the funding has come from the Willamette National Forest. So thank you, Willamette. So why we are here? Well, I felt that this cartoon basically says it all, right? There's a cow sitting on the witness stand and he's being grilled, and they say, look, we know how you did it. How is no longer the question. What we now want to know is why. Why now, brown cow? Brett Blunden reminded me this Far Side cartoon exists. I think there's a Far Side cartoon for just about every circumstance. They're not always politically correct, but I thought this was very appropriate. So this kind of says it all. I think we've gotten very good over the years at explaining in our NEPA documents how we are going to do stuff, down to the gnat's eyebrow, right? But building a little bit more solid, logic path-driven rationale for why here and why now is something that we could probably put a finer point on. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And basically our goals are fourfold. We're going to explore landscape ecology principles, including the geological, terrestrial, aquatic, wildlife, and human ecosystems. You got to have the humans in there. We're going to discover how a landscape perspective can help identify resource management issues and support strong, successful NEPA decisions. So this is a big why thing. Building a foundation for integrated, efficient planning. You've all heard of EADM. We'll talk today about why this fits well with that process. And of course, creating a peer network for sharing. So I think the best resource we have out there in Region 6 and out in internet land as well is our fellow cohorts that we can talk to and learn from. So the agenda is laid out to accomplish those goals. We're going to start out this morning with the science. So building a science foundation. It is not going to teach you everything you ever need to know about Landscape Ecology 101, but there's a few key features that hopefully will pique your interest, maybe brush some dust off some college thinking, and cause you hopefully to go back and do some exploration on your own of some additional landscape ecology kinds of principles. That's going to be followed by more of the state of the planning stuff. We'll have a panel of planners who will talk about the left side of the triangle and why this landscape ecology thing fits in okay, really, with our NEPA regulations. And that'll be followed in the afternoon by a bunch of homegrown approaches. So how are your peers actually using these sorts of concepts out there in the real world? So to kick us off this morning, I should give a shout out. So there was probably about 150 people who RSVP'd for this here in the room, 160 or so. There's another couple hundred out in internet land that are live streaming this. So hello out there in live stream land. If you have any issues out there, what's that? Dean, are they out there?
They're out there. They let us know that we need to turn the volume up, and they're listening.
Okay, they're listening all the way from New Hampshire to Arizona to Colorado and Utah to, I think, Florida. I think my sister in Minnesota was going to be tuning in as well. So, hey, Kimmy. So we have a couple folks that are going to do some kickoff introductory comments about this and tell us why, from a leadership perspective, this makes some good sense. And our first speaker is Lisa Northrup, who's a Deputy Regional Forester here for Region 6. And I think we just heard her call in. No, the AV box is telling me no, she's not there. Okay. Paul Anderson is going to come up and talk first then. Paul is the acting station director for the Pacific Northwest Research Station, and hopefully Lisa will join us here. She's just going to be coming in with the voice over the loudspeaker, so we will hear from her virtually. So, Paul, go ahead.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you all here this morning, here for this event. So Lisa was supposed to say all the pithy things, and I was supposed to follow in and fill in and greet you. So I'll reverse that a little bit, and maybe I can add just a little bit of context. And what I'm relaying is the context that I hold in my role as the acting station director around this gathering and what's going on more broadly in terms of how, as an agency, we're collaboratively approaching issues around planning, NEPA, deciding where and when to do work. And I really describe that as sort of a collaborative effort in that the role of every one of the deputy areas has a role to play in how we approach these issues around planning and developing a program of work for the region. So from setting a little bit of context, it was 2015 or 2016, we made a public statement that the region was considering forest plan revision, or some call it forest plan modernization. Most of the emphasis at the time around that dialogue was around Northwest Forest Plan area, and basically most of the forest plans that reside within the Northwest Forest Plan area are very mature, out of date potentially, but certainly mature. We've gone on a 25-year journey of following through on what was a novel approach that set a very broad-scale context for forest management across a large geographic portion of the region. And really the context was framed around how do we look at scale at some of the key drivers, key issues that are driving what's happening on our national forests. Certainly it's what society interested in at scale in terms of what forests can provide, both ecologically, but biosocially, economically, from a conservation standpoint. So certainly an experiment at scale around how we do planning. We've had 25 years to actually monitor what's come about in terms of responses of our ecosystems and society to that. And so, in a sense, maybe at temporal scale, we're finally at a place where we can really talk about how do we adapt to what our planning approach, our management approaches, given what we've learned at scale. So today, looking at the topic here, I feel that this event really represents sort of follow through on the commitment we made in 2015, 2016, when we went out to the public and said, we're considering forest plan modernization, and we're going to use the best available science. So when we look across deputy areas, we all have a role to play. R&D is here today. We're going to hear some of the science outcomes that have evolved out of forest plan monitoring, but also out of research, experiments and studies. We're also going to have the experience and the knowledge gained from our regional ecology group, the tools that they've developed in order to better understand the context, the dynamics that are occurring on those ecosystems, and in a sense put us in a position where we can talk about these issues again at scale with the advantage of having 25 years of learning around a forest management, a regional forest management strategy at scale. In terms of sort of our current context, we hear a lot about pace and scale of restoration as one of the key drivers that are sitting, that all our regions face. It's one of the questions coming down from the Department of Agriculture. How do we actually manage our forests? How do we create desirable, favorable forest conditions at a pace and at a scale that has beneficial outcomes? So we have a current context, but I choose to believe that that context really fits in well with the questions we started asking 25 years ago. And I also feel that as you hone in on the where and when, that question, basically it's distilling down to where do you work locally so that you can have a cumulative outcome at a larger scale. So those are the kinds of issues that I think you're addressing today. And is Lisa there yet? Okay, well then I'll just really looking forward to today's presentations, and I hope the interactions that you have are fruitful. Go ahead, Lisa.
So good morning, all. This is Lisa Northrup. I'm the Deputy Regional Forester for the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, and Washington Forest Service. And I'm really happy to join you today on behalf of Glenn Casamassa, the Regional Forester. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the outcomes from this meeting today. It's always good to get smart people together thinking about big problems. So that's one of the hardest things we do is contemplate what to do with those big, wicked issues that affect national forest system land and other public lands and actually just the world in general. So I'm sure that Paul and others will carry back great stories of the great ideas you guys came up with. So this morning I just want to give a little introduction for this meeting and really just highlight the purpose of it. And it's really just to explore contemporary science related to landscape ecology and engage in that peer-to-peer learning that's so critical to help us improve the integration of science and meet the objectives for our NEPA processes as we move forward with land management actions on national forest system land. So really the whole goal is to explore the scope and scale of issues and actually think about how to apply science in a way that helps drive the outcomes that we need and want on our public lands. If you think about the new "This is who we are" values-based, purpose-driven, relationship-focused document that's come out for the Forest Service, it really gets at the whole purpose and value of our mission, getting at the whole service piece and the interdependence piece for conservation. And, you know, I just think it's really important to focus on that because it helps us to think about our work in an integrated fashion, and it helps us to think between our practitioners and our scientists and our researchers how to integrate our work and complement each other as we move forward. So Paul and I chatted a little bit this morning, and we were talking about that scope and scale issue, and I think where it hit home for me personally is when I was working on the Angeles National Forest back in 2009 when we had the station fire. It was a gigantic fire. It was like 200,000 acres. And after that fire finally was contained and then extinguished, it took a while for the public to understand that they weren't just going to get back in there and start recreating again. And it was really interesting to talk to people about how the scope and scale of that fire was a reset for the forest, and it actually provided an opportunity to let a fire-managed ecosystem actually find itself and equalize before it started providing all the benefits that it does to the American public. So it's those feedback systems and helping people understand what they look like that really matters as we move forward. And that's what I'm hoping that you guys all ponder today and think through as you move out in this meeting to tackle the big issues. So we really want to use that science and the work that we have at hand to manage public lands to help us innovate and figure out new ways of doing our work that's probably going to be a lot more efficient and probably more informed than it has been in the past. So that's what I'm really hoping for as well, is that innovation piece. So beyond that, I would just welcome you all to the region and to that meeting that you have there together. And I really do look forward to the thoughts that are fostered between you all. So thanks for letting me speak to you, and I hope you have a productive meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Help me thank Lisa and Paul for kicking us off. So I saw a talk about a year ago by Gordon Grant that kind of spurred my thinking about this whole concept of thinking about landscapes. He had this graphic, which was the critical zone, which basically is where rock meets life. And it puts everything into perspective in one graphic, from the bedrock or even below the bedrock all the way up to the treetops. And I thought, what a wonderful unifying concept for how we should be thinking about our landscapes, because that includes the aquatic systems, the terrestrial systems, that are all underpinned by the geological systems. I actually dropped a little person into the diagram because he didn't have one. Because, geez, come on, Gordon, we need a person in there too. Not just equipment observing the system, which is what his slide had. But, so yeah, I just thought it was a wonderful unifying concept, and we kind of built our day around that. And so we're going to start off with our first speaker, is Karen Bennett, and she's going to talk to you about that underpinning landscape, which, quite frankly, I think, and many of us who are believers think that it's where you gotta start with everything. So help me welcome Karen Bennett.